The men's 10,000 meter Canadian Championship race will close out the 2025 edition of the Royal City Inferno. 18 athletes scheduled to come to the line here. Ihab El Sandali, Toronto West Athletics. He's going to start on the inside. He's going to be one of the athletes to watch in this one. Personal best of 28:50.66. That came back in 2021. There is El Sandali. And there is the field for this 10,000 meter championship race.
We saw some great teamwork and partnerships on display in the women's race. This is a much bigger field on the men's side. Last year was very competitive in this race. Lots of athletes, maybe not quite as deep up front, but expect to see those sort of groupings forming throughout this 10,000 meter run. And as you mentioned, Ihab El Sandali of Toronto West Athletics. He'll start on the very inside, and he will be the athlete to watch.
Canadian record out of sight, the great, truly one of the great long-distance, mid-distance runners of his generation, internationally in the world. The great Mo Ahmed, 26:34.
Had me here, our fabulous in-stadium announcer, Steve Fleck, calling out the really quick Canadian record belonging to one Mr. Mo Ahmed, who's had some Achilles issues lately. That kept him out of his half marathon debut earlier this season. But he holds the Canadian record at 26:34.14 that goes back to 2022. That was such a brilliant run by Mr. Ahmed. Last year's winner, Andrew Alexander, 28:27.69. Well, the only man who could come close to that time in this field really is El Sandali, wearing hip number 1. And his personal best, as you said, Adam, 28:50.66 from about 4 years ago. But he has had some great head-to-head performances since then, and very much capable of getting into that territory once more. Another athlete I want you to keep your eye on here, currently slotted in 5th place overall. That makes him 4th in the race proper, just on the outside, just back of picture. In that neon kit wearing hip 4, that's Alex Sear, and he's coming off a really fabulous year. He was 10th at the Canadian 10K Road Championships in Ottawa in May, at the end of May, I should say, and recently, on Saturday, was 3rd at the Under Armour 10K in Toronto on the Toronto Lakeshore, and you see him just sitting on the outside shoulder there of El Sandali, wanting to strike, I think, wanting to keep this pace moving.
Mentioned that Canadian record belonging to Mo Ahmed. Mo Ahmed already named to the Canadian team for the upcoming World Championships, which will take place in Tokyo in September. He was one of the 8 initial nominees to the team.
I can, but my computer would literally
Competitors coming up to the first 1,000-kilometer split.
I would think so. It's probably a tough run because of the conditions. A few of these guys for sure can break 29 minutes. Ehab already has done that. We've seen a lot of these guys on go 29 mid to 29:20.
So 2:58 unofficially through that split. In fact, I think it was about 2:57, so that puts them through that opening 1,000-meter right around 29:45 pace. You can see some grouping there on the outside wearing hip 3, swinging a bit wide in the glasses, about 6 back. That's Dylan Alec. Does a lot of road racing across the country. Trains in Ontario, but has been a standout in BC and beyond. A 105:23 half marathon, best to his name. And I think maybe these athletes through that opening kilometer got a little bit of feedback, and now you see things starting to string out. So just maybe a nod that we need to keep clicking away here. We have to keep this honest. If it lags too much too early, it's really hard to come back from the more fatigued you get.
Third place.
So our pacer doing a really good job up front of keeping this honest. So helpful having those rabbits to keep things clicking along. You see they're tucked in second right now. That is Philippe Morneau-Cartier, I should say. He's out of that University of Laval group, and he comes in with a best to his name in this event of 29:51.81. That's from 3 years ago, back in 2022. But his name has been bounced around the Canadian scene for a number of years. And he's doing a really good job of just holding himself in that second place spot. And then just behind him, wearing hip number 7, that is Félix Quirion. Out of Sherbrooke. We've seen Félix Quirion a few times on this Canadian circuit already. He was 6th last year in this race, 29:50.37. He is the top returner. And Dylan Alec sits in 3rd. I believe that's Sear in 4th, or Ehab El-Sandali in 4th, Sear in 5th. And then tucked just behind them is Miles Avalus out of Toronto West Athletics. He is a teammate of Ehab El-Sandali. We should mention a really good contingent from that crew here. Joining them is Roman Mironov. And again, a really good shot there. Fairly strung out, but close enough that they're trying to maintain contact. You see a couple of athletes just sort of swinging their arms wide and trying to stay on their feet as the pacer tries to ensure that this thing doesn't lag too much.
So they go through 2 kilometers in 5:54, so that is a 2:56 split. So a little quicker than the opening 1,000 meters at 2:58.
Earlier this year, you're talking about that transition out of college, that first year out of college. This is his first full year out of college. El-Sandali, he's had some challenges with him, apparently, in terms of just dealing with the safety of the program.
So Adam, this is interesting. I talked in the women's race about wanting to choose your spots to pass, especially early on. It's all about energy conservation. You don't want to extend or expend any more than you need to in these early few laps and early few kilometers. And Ehab El-Sandali, he's doing this interesting thing where it's almost like he's a bit of like the cuckoo bird on a cuckoo clock. He's just checking out to the outside on each of these straightaways to see where the danger is. There you see Morneau-Cartier stepping on the infield. I wonder if he might have just gotten bumped a little bit. But El-Sandali, he's really experienced. He's really intuitive. He's an excellent racer that way. And on several of these homer backstretches. He's just popped out a little bit to the outside of lane 1 and taken a glance at what's happening in front of him so that he can gain some information and make sure that no moves are being made ahead and no gaps are forming. You see him doing that again right now. He's swinging a little bit wide, just taking a glance into that home stretch to see where the danger is, and now he's decided it's time for me to make my move because I can't let this pace drop any more than it already has.
Morneau Cartier continuing to lead as they get close to the 3,000 meter split. And they're through that at about 8:50.
Well, Adam, that would put them around 29-25. So they are continuing to pick it up a little bit. You can see that the work of the pacer up front is starting to show. He's really gotten dynamic in the arm movement. I just wonder if he's stepping off a little bit. Philippe Morneau Cartier, I should say, looks really relaxed. So too does El Sandali in third. This is impressive running by Morneau Cartier. And he's been such an athlete to watch on the Quebec scene, coming off of the Canadian 10K Road Championships with a 12th place performance there, 29:38 to his name. And he's got some speed behind him. He has run, in the Canadian University system, 3,000 meters, 5,000 meters. He's a 409 miler, a 347 1500 runner, 29:51.81, his best on the track at this distance, and he just looks totally in control, almost kind of pushing the pacer along at this point. And now we see the most separation we have at any point in this race, a very clear 5, and of course one of those is the pacer. So really 4 athletes in contention here.
Morneau Cartier also quite an accomplished cross-country racer as well. He was 4th at last year's Canadian Championships.
So this is a really nice move by Dylan Alec. He's really kept himself in this. He's currently sitting in 4th. Again, that tall athlete with the glasses. And we saw this on the women's side, just taking note of what's happening in front of him. This is sort of like we saw with Niro Rakundo. Moving to the outside, he's expending a little bit more energy in doing so, but he's also making sure that he can cover any moves as they come. Like I said, really experienced on the road. He races a lot, so he's got lots of previous performances to draw from.
That looked to be right around 11:56 at 4,000 meters. So that keeps them right around that 2:56 pace per 1,000.
So our pacer moving off after some really great work, giving these athletes some reprieve, and it's a 4-man race with a 5th chasing on the back of that front pack. That's Miles Avalos, another Toronto West Athletics runner. He had an 11th place finish at the Canadian 10K Road Championships in May. He ran 29:34 there, and he's doing a great job of just running, again, that shortest distance, tucked in on the inside, not concerned. When it's such a small group up front, this is really, I think, the best move. You want to conserve as much as you can. And if you see a move happen, if you see a gap start to form, you can cover that fairly quickly. Now, you don't want to be in that position with about 600 meters to go. But at this point in the race, I think that's really smart running by Avalos, and he looks super relaxed as a result. He's getting all of that assistance from the 3 guys ahead of him. Dylan Alec looks great too, sitting in 3rd, but it continues to be Ihab El Sandali, who to my mind is most in control of this race. He has let Morneau Cartier do so much of this work. He sat just to his outside shoulder. Like I said, so much experience behind him. He can just cover any move that happens. He's got really good gears. He can react quickly. And as we enter the bulk of the race, these 4 men are really the ones to watch. So much separation back to the rest of the pack, and it just happened in the last 2 laps, Adam.
This is going to be the halfway point. So they're through the opening half in 14:47. So that's a little quicker than we've seen. To be around 251, 252.
And that's a 29:45 projected finish. This is sort of the dream situation. You have 4 guys who are completely capable of covering this distance at this pace. They're working really well together. It remains Morneau Cartier at the front, but the 3 behind have sort of shuffled positions. Again, a little bit of musical chairs. Every couple laps, they're changing who's in the front. And Dylan Alec is just chomping at the bit. This is impressive to see from him. Like I said, he's a consistent performer on the roads, consistent on the track as well. But I don't think I've seen him look this good in a very long time, and he just looks really impatient. That's a great place to be. You don't want to go too early, but to be this impatient at this point means that he knows that he's got a lot left in the tank.
Well, and finally, someone is going to take the leading duties from Morneau Cartier. Dylan Alec now in the lead.
And Dylan Alec was a standout at McMaster University in Hamilton and has trained a lot and raced a lot with Sergio Reyes Villanueva, also a MAC athlete and a good buddy of Alex. They travel the country together. They race really well together. Like I said, a 105.23 half to his best that came in March of this year in New York. He's got a 10K season's best on the road from those Canadian 10K championships at 29:43. But like I said, lots of range, really solid 1,500 meter runner, 3,000 meter runner for MAC, and has just steadily moved up over the last few years to the roads, and they suit him really well. So too does this longer distance track running.
So we got Miles Brackenbury who just came past the finish line there, and Lucas McEnany, long-time marathon runner. I'm guessing he was not running the field by quite a few years.
Coming up to the 6,000 meter split. About 17:47. So they have slowed a bit. That last 1,000 meters, 3 minutes.
And Adam, I think that's maybe why we're seeing Alec take to the front. You know, he gets the sense that although it's really helpful to have someone else lead for a long time, in this case it's been in the form of Morneau Cartier, that also takes a toll on them. So the pace can start to slow, especially through the middle of a race like this, where you need to keep your turnover quick, you need to keep your focus sharp. And if you let your leader dictate that, it sometimes can slow to a point where you didn't realize, oh, I just ran 3 laps that really sort of ruined the pace that I had set out from the beginning. So kudos to Dylan Alec for taking on the charge up front. And just also, again, giving Morneau Cartier a little bit of a break. He might be able to get a second wind, come back, and help press the pace along as well. But Dylan Alec, really, really solid, impressive running from him. This is great to see.
Alec 13 in the 10-kilometer road running championships last month in Ottawa. On the track, he's looking for his first Canadian title.
You know what's really interesting about this for me, Adam, is that Ihab El-Sandali, of course, he's been in the conversation the whole time. He's done very little work up front, so he's letting that race play out. He's conserving energy in the process. Look at him splitting the distance there between Morneau Cartier and Alec. That is a prime spot to be in. And so too, we should mention Félix Quirion. Like I said, last year's top returner. He was 6th. The Sherbrooke standout has been sort of sitting in the wings this whole time. We haven't talked a whole lot about him, but he's running really smart, really strong. Like I said, conserving that energy and waiting for a break to happen. At some point, someone has to start clicking this thing down. As I say that, this is the most distance we've seen between Alec and the rest of the field. I think he's just testing them a little bit, trying to figure out, are they going to come with me if I make a move? How much can I afford to give away here? Because he can't leave it to a kicker's race. There are some really fast guys behind him. So he knows he needs to start cranking it down and put the gears or the screws to the rest of the competition.
That was another 3-minute 1,000. They come through 7,000 meters in 20:47. Now the battle is going to be for Quirion to try and stay with this lead 3 as they have put some track between themselves and the Sherbrooke athlete.
I'm really impressed with the discipline and the routine that Ihab El-Sandali's been following here. He's never taken the lead.
We saw this on the women's side. This is where lapping some of your competitors can be really helpful. You've seen El-Sandali doing this a few times. He's just kind of shaking out that right arm. Adam, you asked earlier about the difference between road and track running and where you're at sort of mentally and physically at this point, you know, 3/4 of the way through, let's call it, a 10,000 on the track. Every time you make those turns, you're putting a little more pressure on that inside, so in this case, the left. And you see him just trying to find some relaxation through the shoulders. This is what we saw in the women's race. Caron made her move where there was traffic. That's really wise, because if you can just throw your competition off a little bit by making them not only have to navigate what's happening with the bodies around them, but also a move that you throw in, that can be devastating. That's what we saw with El Sandali and Dylan Alec there. Now, it seems as though Morneau-Cartier has responded well. He knew what game was afoot, as they say, and countered it, came back and joined the back of that pack, and he's getting some well-deserved rest right now after leading for so many laps. But again, just shaking things out through the upper body as El Sandali, trying to find the most relaxation possible and make sure that he's conserving a lot for what, again, is being set up for a real kicker's final.
Coming up to 8,000 meters through that in 23:47, so that is another 3-minute split for 1,000.
So 23:47 for that 8,000 meter puts them still solidly under the 30-minute mark, but like I said, this is going to come down to a kicker's race. 29:50 is the sort of approximate time that you're looking for a finish. All of these guys well capable of that, and this is going to be really interesting because Alec, for the first time, starting to show that he's just got some building fatigue. El Sandali looking poised to strike on the outside. And he just has to be sure that when he goes, he commits to that move. If you go around on the outside and it's a little bit lackluster, all you're going to do is pull the rest of the field with you, and suddenly you become the de facto leader. So when he pounces, he has to pounce hard.
Well, El Sandali either has a very good poker face or he is feeling pretty good still.
No, Adam, I think he's just playing with them. I think he looks so relaxed, so comfortable. Not to take anything away from Alec or Morneau-Cartier, but Sandali's been happy to let them lead. And he's said, okay, you guys do the work. I'm going to enjoy the benefit of this. Again, moving out just a little bit on that backstretch, on that home stretch. Here you see the cheer squad on the inside getting the arm crank going. You gotta love that. It's a small but mighty crowd of supporters here on site at Alumni Stadium in Guelph. What a night for this championship, and you know that's got to give those guys a boost.
If you're El Sandali right now, when do you make your move? Less than 2,000 meters to go here.
I think he's about to make it. I mean, you don't want to go too hard too soon, because once you do it, you're on your own. You have to commit, you have to go hard. But look at him. He's almost bumping the back arm of Dylan Alec. If I'm Alec, I'd be frustrated. I'd actually throw in a surge at this point. What does he have to lose? He's been leading anyway. If I was Dylan Alec, I would force the hand of my competitors at this point and make them work for every step they're going to get on me. I would throw in a big jump and see who goes with me. It just may break the field apart. And as I say that, look, there's been a reconnection to the back of this pack by Felix Quirion. He was out of it and just in the pace lagging a little bit there. This is the danger. Suddenly a three-man race has become four.
Through 9,000 meters now, and that was a 3:01,000 meters.
Yeah, and they're just past the 9K mark, so when they come to the finish line, they're only going to have 2 laps to go.
I'm liking the look of relaxation. I can just see it in the body.
And there is Quirion, who I think they've actually come up and lapped. He was with that lead pack for a while, but they did drop him.
Well, talk about a quick crew. I mean, when you can come up and lap the athlete that you were, sitting with through the bulk of that opening 5K, that is really impressive running. And again, to his credit, whether he's being lapped or not, we're just trying to get confirmation of that. But Quirion, like I said, has taken advantage of the fact that there's momentum in front of him latched onto the back of that train and said, okay, guys, even if you're a lap ahead of me, I'm going to go for a ride.
Right over there, so it is 600 meters of running to the finish from this point. And we have 4 athletes in it and 3 medals to hand out when the dust settles.
And you can see the turnover in their legs is turning over a lot faster. These guys are sniffing home. Less than about 450 meters to go. They want to get to that finish line.
And there is the bell. 1 lap left to go in this 10,000 meter championship. It remains Alec out in front, but hanging around as he has all race long is El Sandali.
This is so thrilling. I love to see this at the end of a race. There goes El Sandali. You wondered when he was going to make his move. Well, I guess it's with 250 meters to go. And here comes Morneau Cartier. This was the danger. Swinging wide now. Alec is responding to Adam. This is still anyone's race. This is so thrilling in a 10,000 meter championship.
It's El Sandali with the lead, but here comes Morneau Cartier on his outside. And Morneau Cartier moves into the lead. And they're going to go full bore down the final straightaway. It maintains the lead for Morneau Cartier, but here comes El Sandali again, and he will get him at the line. He is the Canadian champion in the 10,000 meters.
That was so exciting. I love a kicker's race, and man, did they deliver. That was brilliant running by Ihab El Sandali. Again, you know, you asked when he was going to go. He went, and it still wasn't enough. He was countered, and imagine if he'd gone sooner. It might not have gotten the job done. I got to say, just when it comes to pure speed, 4:09 is the mile best for Morneau Cartier, 4:04 the mile best for Ihab El Sandali. So that speaks volumes about their turnover ability, and what a finish for the Toronto West Athletics athlete. Beautiful running. He ran for Iona University. He's got all that NCAA D1 experience behind him. And like we've seen so many times tonight, Adam, had to throw in a huge push to the finish, but looks disturbingly relaxed for how hard he closed.
The 10,000 meter race came down to the final 50 meters. A great kick by El Sandali as he was able to get by Morneau Cartier and take the victory. His first Canadian title. Just waiting still on his official time for taking that title.
Again, you see some congratulations from his teammates. He's in good company there in the form of Roman Mironov of Toronto West Athletics. Miles Avalos also from that club. And that's been a team that has steadily shown both improvement and results over the years. But Ihab El Sandali taking a national title, showing how to get the job done, and also showing why it never hurts to be a really strong miler when you're going to enter an event like the 10,000. And already able to give an interview. Don't you just love that? Hardly breathing, looking very composed. Not a stellar time overall, but that matters not. It's a championship-style race, and he got the job done.
Thank you to our sponsor, Government of Ontario, Stone Green Thorn, City Green Creamery, Hotline Stanley, Cargo, Danby's, Double Hotels, New Balance, Networks, University of Guelph, and Wall Street Athletics for their organizational expertise. Plus, behind the scenes, Reed Kosat is sitting in with me, carrying 2 long but great 10,000 meter races. Final thoughts for you, Richard?
Yeah, I don't know what we have in store for us with the muggy weather, but
There's another really exciting race. We saw a group of women on the earlier section On the women's side, 2 breakaway groups. In this case, it was a singular breakaway group. 3 became 4, became 3, became 4 again. But at the end, it was all that work by Dylan Alec, allowing Morneau Cartier and Ihab El Sandali to conserve energy and show a blast of speed at the bell. The cheer squad was hot. The temps were hot. The track was hot. This was a thrilling finish. Look at this kicker's race down to the wire. I think Morneau Cartier thought he had it. I think he was surprised to see El Sandali come away in those closing meters. The hand goes down. The fist is pumped. What a performance there by the Toronto West Athletics athlete. Again, Iona University standout. And he is just showing that he is getting better with distance and with age.
Thank you again, Reed Coolsat, the 11th fastest Canadian 10,000 track all time, 27:56.
Yes, years ago, still up tonight.
Full results from today's meet available on athleticlive.com as we get a look at the schedule.